So today, actually, I came to introduce my CEO, Hugo. So thank you so much for having us. Hugo is the CEO of Propellant. Propellant is a design consulting studio where we apply design thinking to solve any type of problem. But Hugo wasn't always a designer, even though he always had the design and the art in his veins. He comes from an artistic family. His grandfather was a painter, and then from a very business family, also from his father's side. So to know a little bit about him, when he was little, you can already see how designy he was. He was the typical mischievous kid that would draw caricatures of the teachers. And then something else about him, when he was 18, he rejected his fourth generation family business. And since then, he's been working on the corporate side for 15 years. He's been designing products and experiences and services as well in Coca-Cola and Telefónica, which is a very big telco in Spain. So besides an amazing experience and life story, he's definitely a mentor and a friend. So please welcome Hugo Giralt.
Well, thank you, everyone, for giving me the opportunity to share some of our learnings with you today. So thank you, Berkeley. Thank you, Victoria. And thank you, Alejandro, for this wonderful introduction. I hope that today I have not too much time to share like a lot of things. I'm from Spain, so I talk very, very fast. If I do, excuse me, you can raise a little bit your hand and I will know that I'm talking maybe a little bit too fast. I want to make it a little bit of fun, to be honest. I know that you all are very, very busy, and probably some of you with even exams ahead, no? So I want to share three things with you today. The first one is a little bit more about my journey. I believe very much into the impact of environment. So I'm going to share with you a little bit like what was the environment of my family, which at the end I think is the DNA of all of us, and how that has been part of kind of like the compass for my journey. No? And second, I want to share with you things that can be very practical for you, which is, I've never opened and created a company before. So this journey, I hope that some of those learnings for those of you that are going to be heading that way might be very interesting. So I'm going to be opening very much a lot of the learnings that we also learn from people here in the Bay Area that very openly wanted to give back. And I truly believe in that, as you're going to see in the presentation. So I want to give back and share. And then third, I want to have the capacity for you to ask me any questions, like, hey, that you explained, why did you say that? When you encountered that challenge, how did you react and why? Please ask me any questions at the end. I will gladly answer them. We have some time there, and then, of course, at the personal level afterwards. So please do. So a little bit about connecting the dots, no? As Steve Jobs used to say, things makes much more sense when you look back than when you look really towards the future, no? Because the future does not exist, and at the end you have to really create it, no? So my journey really, to explain what Alejandro was commenting, this intersection of a family of entrepreneurs and a family of artists, which was kind of like a lot of fun during the weekends. So my family, long time ago in the 1800s, started this crazy business of making anything that was able to be made with glass. At the time, in the 1800s, there was really no pharmaceutical companies. Actually, you had pharmacies with these kind of like different glass jars, right? Where you had like all these different ingredients and the pharmacies will be actually mixing everything. So my family was like, well, that's kind of like boring. Like all the bottles look the same. And my great-great-great-grandfather was like, what if we design them and we actually make them look cool? So they started not only to change the forms, but actually the graphics on them. And they created a factory that was specializing in that. It became really, really interesting business. This thing that you see here in the bottom is when electricity started to come to Spain. They started to make these glass pieces that would go, in the post to connect the different lines of electricity, etc. And then they started to diversify. The other part of the family was much more artistic. This is my grandfather, the father of my mother, an amazing artist. I used to draw and paint with him during the weekend, so it was kind of like that half and half during the weekends. This is the type of paintings he did. As many painting artists, he started very in illustration, illustrative type, no? And then it started to evolve into abstract paintings. At the end, he had like these humongous, like 4 meter by 2 meters paintings that were completely abstract and about different feelings. And I remember once when I was like 9 years old and I was in one of his exhibitions, and one person came next to him. This person didn't know that he was the painter, and said like, I think the painter wanted to interpret here, like a bull with a bullfighter and, the death and aspect. And it was a completely abstract, I swear to God, that thing, I mean, you couldn't actually say anything. And my grandfather was like listening, like very patient, holding my hand, and look at him and said, maybe the artist just wanted to create here some emotion, some feeling, to generate a reaction in you, no? That really struck me, and you're going to see a little bit how that has gone through the presentation. Just to know me a little bit, I'm the typical freak of Lego when I was little, and I still do today. This is the type of things that I used to make when I was little, with around 8, 9 years old. A lot of comic books. I was a troublemaker in class, drawing caricatures of my teachers all the time. Loved to sketch since I was, like very little. Also, computers were starting. I'm 43 years old, so we're talking about, the beginning really, on the 70s. This was a 16K computer, Sinclair Spectrum, programming in BASIC, like super, super basic really games like Pong, etc. And my 3 influencer movies, of course, Star Wars, which was the first movie I ever watched in a movie theater. My mother said that I was not able to close my mouth for 1.5 hours. I was like, and second one, of course, Blade Runner, and the third one is Space Odyssey. The 3 strike me because the artificial intelligence aspect and the robotics behind. And it's very important because, like artificial intelligence had like a very big peak in the 70s. And nowadays, we are living a second one that is really, really where the technology is actually bringing it into life. You're going to see that a lot of the projects that we're doing touch that. So this is part of the context. I think it's important to understand a little bit more about where I come from. So I studied business, even though I wanted to study design because my father, as Alejandro was commenting, had the hope that I was going to continue the family business of glass bottles and pharmaceuticals, etc. So I went to study first business, saying, like in the future I will study design, but that's what I really want to do. I went to Babson College. From there, I created the first digital department in UNICEF. From there, led the first digital department in the Coca-Cola company in Spain. Ended up leading from London the 17 countries of the European Union at the time for digital projects and new innovation and new digital services. And then from there, moved to Telefónica, humongous telco in Spain and South America, basically leading new digital multimedia projects, like launch of new completely social networks before Facebook came to Spain, and that type of initiatives. Learn a lot. And when I jumped into Telefónica, I worked there for around 3 years. And I remember that I had like this dilemma of, is it now the moment that I go back to school and study, Masters in Industrial Design? And at that point, I started to read a lot about the backbone of artificial intelligence, big data, coming back, as you will see also with Internet of Things, etc. And I was like, you know what? It doesn't make sense that everybody's going to be looking at the screen all the time in their mobile phones, in the tablet, or in their computers. Things are going to start to become much more connected and smarter. And I want to be part of that journey. I want to be part, actually, of writing that future with a lot of other companies. So that's why I went back to school. I was 37 years old, already a director in Telefónica. Not an easy decision, as you can imagine. I had 67 people in the team, a lot of budget, resources to do amazing things, but I really knew that I had to reset, push the button for 2 years to go back to school and go back to basics to really get the fundamentals of design right, and the tangibility aspects of the experiences are going to really shape our lives in the future. So I did that. First day of orientation, typical story, I met my co-founder, and he's from India. He was, at the time, 24 years old. I was 37. And I was like, what are you doing here? And he's like, well, I sold my company in India, and I have been doing a lot of, like UX and also product design, but I really want to get the fundamentals of product design. I'm like, well, that's great, me too. So what is the future? What do you want to do? And he's like, well, I'm here, because I want to create maybe a company that is in this intersection of the physical and digital to create better experiences for people. And I'm like, well, that's exactly what I'm here for. I cannot believe it. And it's like, okay. So we make a pact in the first week in orientation to actually do our thesis together about the future of energy consumption at home and Internet of Things. And that's what we did, kind of like a boot camp to see if we could deal with each other to create a company. And we created, while we were actually graduating in our center, we created Propellant. So that's the story that I want to share a little bit today with you. So a little bit of what we do in Propellant, so everyone is in the same page. Propellant is a strategic design studio. We basically help companies to grow and to transform. This means that we actually create products, services, and experiences, very important, that matter truly to people in their lives. You will see that in a minute in some of the examples. So where do we add value? We add value because we believe that there's a lot of companies that are physical that are trying to evolve into the digital area. But there's a lot of companies also that their DNA is digital that are trying to evolve into the physical. Now, these two intersections is actually where we are positioning to help to transform companies, to transform actually through better experiences in people's lives. Now, our DNA is completely global. We started in San Francisco. Everybody told us like, hey, no, you should start where you have your network of contacts, etc., which is in Spain, right? That would have been the easiest. We said, no, that's actually the easiest, so forth, we're not going to do that. Let's go to San Francisco. Let's go actually where is the highest concentration of design studios. And everybody was like, you're crazy. It's like, well, even in the worst case scenario, you're going to learn much more than if you start actually into Spain, right? So we came to San Francisco and we started to create, our own niche in this intersection of physical and digital. And we started to work with financial companies, with consumer packaged goods companies, etc. And from there, 1 year and a half after, we opened in Madrid in Spain, which is going really, really well, working with utility companies, with car makers, with a lot of different, very big Fortune 500 companies. And now we are in the works for next year, which is going to be a lot of fun, to actually open Mexico City. We want to open regional offices that then you can actually pivot into different countries in each of the offices, in different regions. This is how the office looks like here in San Francisco. We just moved 2 weeks ago. It's actually where, MakerBot, the 3D printers, is where MakerBot started, so it had a lot of energy. They showed the space to us, and we were like, okay, have you shown this, to the landlord? Have you shown this to anybody else? It's like, no, you are the first. It's like, okay, we're taking it. We were in another space that we were starting to be a little bit tight. The good thing is that it's a space that adapts to the projects, not the other way around. So we have an island, as you can see in the center, and then all the space around is where you, with the different teams, you have actually everyone working on. We like to work with Fortune 500 startups, companies, 500 Fortune companies that gives you the financial stability. But we also work, for example, with startups. The reason why is because you're working directly with the founders, with the people that are passionate. So we're working with a lot of accelerators and incubators and helping to mentor actually the startups to come and to take into account not only the technology aspect, but actually the human element from the beginning and how to actually generate those experiences that are going to be adding value, again, in people's lives. We use design thinking as our methodology for all the projects. Probably a lot of you are familiar with design thinking. How many of you are familiar with design thinking? Cool, perfect, there are some, good. The interesting thing is basically what we apply is a methodology to resolve problems. We start with empathy, which is really to discover what are the human needs, what are the pain points, why people are actually, for example, using a product or a service in a certain way that might not be the best way, right? And you do that by primary research, talking to final consumers, to final users, to really understand in their lives what are the pain points, but also what are the magic moments. Now, with the primary research also, you're doing in parallel secondary research. Secondary research is basically understanding what are the trends and the forces behind those trends, not only in that industry, but also from other industries that you can actually learn from. Now, if you are working, for example, with a bank and you analyze what other banks are actually doing, it's going to be actually very similar. So it's better that if you're working, for example, with a bank, you actually go and try to understand, like, What's happening, for example, in crowdsourced right now, innovation? What's happening in music? What's happening in entertainment like video games? And try to understand that the same people are using those bank services, are also using those other services. Learn from other industries and how you can actually take that and apply it to the industry that you're working for your client. So with the primary and the secondary research, at the end, you're going to end up having insights. Insights meaning really what are kind of like the pinpoints of the areas of opportunity that actually you can add value to create those experiences. Now, with those areas of opportunity, then you're going to be, that is what you have identified, you're going to be jumping into the next phase, which is the design phase. Here, based on those areas of opportunity that you have identified, based on the insights that come from primary and secondary research, you're going to kick off really the ideation. Now, in design thinking, one of the challenges is the jump from the discovery phase to the design phase. This is like happens to all of us, no? We are like monkeys. At the end, we are kind of like mixed or fixed. So it's very normal that you try to come with a solution right away at the beginning while you are actually doing, for example, the research. That's something that I highly recommend to don't do. You have to be like if you are 3-4 years old. You know, when we were in the car in a trip with our parents and we were asking like, Dad, why the sky is blue? And your dad will give you an answer, and then you will ask, like, but why? And there will be a point that your father, my father at the time didn't have Wikipedia, will not know what else to answer, right? Now, that's what you want really to actually gather into, right? That is going to be really, really important. So the jump here is to actually, once you have actually the areas of opportunity and you have been completely fresh on understanding with your eyes and with your ears, understanding really how people are using it, then you can actually jump into the ideation. And that's where you release the horses of creativity, but not before. This is very, very important, because otherwise you're going to jump in the theory of the napkin, jumping in the solution right away. So ideation and start prototyping, as you're going to see, one prototype is worth 1,000 meetings. So it's very important to start to ideate and prototype in parallel to bring into life those ideas as soon as you can. And start to validate them with the consumer. Don't forget the final user and the consumer, right, of those products and services, like you just talk at the beginning and then you're not going. You need to constantly make them part of the co-creation process. That's actually where the magic is going to be happening. And then, of course, this is a process of iteration. You're not going to get it right just on once. It's actually by validating and by receiving all that feedback and making another better prototype, whether it's physical or whether it's digital or the intersection of both, and you're going to keep refining it. And then, of course, there's a moment in all projects that you need to actually freeze those technical requirements and actually get into execution mode. Otherwise, you're never going to be able to make it on time. And last, in design thinking, which is crucial, you need to learn and to measure. What are the key performance indicators? What are the variables, the parameters that you want actually to measure if that actually is growing as you wanted, as it's scaling as fast as you wanted, and it's actually adding the value that you wanted in people's lives. Now, that's crucial because based on that, you can make actually the decision if you want to evolve that product or that service, or if you want to reinvent it from scratch. So measurement of innovation is one of the hottest topics, as you can imagine, in this industry. Now, this slide for me is very, very important. For many, many years, we have been focused on when someone was using our products or our service. This is changing. The biggest opportunity actually is to understand the user experience in a much more holistic and broad way. What happens before people are using our product or our service? What happens after the people have used our product or our service? What are the magic moments that we can actually generate? What are the pain points? A great example of this is Uber, right? Uber in the before, if you didn't have, for example, cash, you were not able to order a taxi, right? An Uber, you didn't have the ride. Now, that pain point is turning into a magic moment. Now, with one click, you're able to order, for example, the taxi. The other pain point, for example, that you had is that you didn't know where it was. So you will call the call center and it's like, hey, where is my car, right? Where is my taxi? And you could lose, for example, a plane and an important meeting maybe because of that, right? Now you see the map and the anxiety is actually much lower. You have actually the capacity with one click to call directly the driver. So another pain point turned into a magic moment. Now in the during, they're adding a lot of layers of service and value by partnering, for example, with companies like, for example, Spotify, right? If you are on Spotify Premium, now you have the capacity to listen to your music. The pain point is that a car that doesn't feel like your own space, now it feels like your home, right? Now, from there, they're going to keep adding a lot of layers. And then in the after, which is very interesting, double transparency. You are able to rate the driver. Less than 4.7, they are in standby for a few weeks, normally 3 weeks. And then when they come back, if they get lower again than 4.7, they will no longer actually be riding, right? But the drivers are also rating you. If you make a lot of cancellations, if the rides are very, very short, for example, they will start also to rate you. In the app, actually very hidden, you can actually see what is your rating. If it gets lower than 4, even if you click, they don't come to pick you up. So it's very interesting, it's double transparency. Okay? So that's the after. If you understand products and services, any startup, any product or project that you're working on in that much holistic way, you're going to be adding much more value, turning pain points actually that were not detected before because it was not just about the during, in the before and in the after, and you're going to be much more competitive into the market. You truly are going to be adding much more value again to the final user. Now, we're living the third wave right now of internet. The first one, everybody in 1995, right? Everybody wanted to have a website. Now, 2006, a smartphone, everybody wanted to have an app. And now, between now, 2015, now in the 16 to 2020, everybody wants to have a smart connected device, right? Artificial intelligence, connected, is going to be learning platform, ecosystems, etc., right? That's where we are heading into. And all those things are going to be completely connected. There's the data that is saying that is going to be 61 billion smartphones connected versus 26 billion objects connected to internet in 2020. That's 4 years from now. It's going really, really fast and exponential. Now, why this is so important? For many years, companies have been working on big data, and now we have seen that Internet of Things, for example, is also coming into, and then artificial intelligence. Now, Internet of Things is actually bringing the tangibility to this data, and that's why it's going to be so important. For many years, companies have been talking about the acquisition of data, right? How many research users I have, how much actually data can get from them, and how I can learn. From there, you start to structure all that volume of information so it becomes useful. And then from there, you start to turn that usefulness into knowledge. Now, very few companies at the end are in the top of the pyramid, which is predictive modeling, right? Why is so important predictive modeling? Well, it's super crucial because at the end you are predicting in that before that we were commenting, before someone uses your product and your service, you have the capacity to predict what is the behavior that they're going actually to do. And that's where you can start to actually engage with them and add a lot of value. Now we're seeing, for example, a lot of that with all the chatbots and all the push that is happening, right? Now, that opens two big questions when we work, for example, with clients, which is how to monetize and how to turn data into services. Now, user experience is really expanding, and we're trying to focus in these 4 areas that you see here. The first one is connected people, the second one is connected home, third one connected car, and the fourth is connected environment. Why it's so important? Well, because at the end, when you work, for example, with a connected car type of project, the type of challenges that you're going to have, for example, with Audi, look more like this. These are, for example, 2 autonomous cars, Bobby and Robbie. This is in the Sonoma racetrack, and it's pretty impressive because at the end, if you start to think what are all the uses of that data that these cars are actually generating, and what are all the layers of services that you can actually be generating to monetize and to create actually new businesses that add value in people's lives, are really infinite, right? Now, what is interesting is that you see these 2 cars, hardware-wise are completely the same, software completely the same. At the end of the day, they start to actually use the references for braking and acceleration and the driving line in a different way. They learn differently. You start to actually touch what is actually the artificial intelligence in each of the cars, no? Of course, we are very primitive yet, but imagine this in 5-10 years from now, no? Now, other type of projects that we have been involved with that are really passionate is, for example, in connected home. This is with Telefonica and with Securitas, that is one of the top leading security companies in the world. In this case, is how to make your home connected, smart, and have the capacity to control who enters into your home, what, when, very easily just through your phone. And the third one that I want to actually share with you that is very interesting is more on connected people. No? This is a couple of years ago what we did for the World Cup in Brazil, and it's a smart bottle. When the client came to us, they had this design of the bottle, which actually the players were hating because it was very hard to drink from. The plastic was like very, very rigid. And then when your hands were sweaty, your bottle will just fall off, no, of your hand. And then when you had to drink, imagine Cristiano Ronaldo and this type of players, I'm a Real Madrid fan, they will have to, like open it with the teeth like that, so another player will grab it, and then it will be like if a squirrel has been, chewing into it. So it was really, really not a good design. So we came up with a bottle that actually empower the athlete, like you feel really like a superpower. So we were like, what if we make the bottle actually to lit up, and when the players would drink from it, so it will lit up, and then when the players will drink from it, it will look like if the energy is getting inside of the body of the player, right? So the player with their flag, in this case Deutschland, Germany, for you, Victoria. So at the end, world champions. Spain did a horrible job, by the way. But it is charges by induction, right? It opens a dialogue. So when you are, for example, in the cameras, at the end it says power through with the hashtag. So it opened also a dialogue with the fans, for example, in social media. And it was a great way, for example, of reinventing something that actually the players were not happy about, no? It's very interesting to see the process, no? What we were commenting before. This is the initial, based on all the insights and primary and secondary research, this is the initial ideation. So it normally starts at very low resolution level, like completely post-it level, as low as you can get, okay? And we got as many ideas as possible. Now from there, we started to refine it actually into much more higher definition concepts, okay? And then the concepts, in parallel, we started to test what was actually the technology available that you can actually see here, like for example, a mini Arduino with existing LEDs. And you see here the different iterations, for example, for each of the parts, whether it was the sleeve with the different types of silicone and materials, whether it was the electronics, whether it was the bottle was the same, or whether it was the personalization, for example, and the redesign also of the cap. So they would have not had to open it with the teeth, but it has like a clinical valve, so you will just open it like this and the water will not actually, for example, come out, right? The powering. So what is interesting in the case, for example, of the electronics is that we ended up using a technology that is called printed LEDs. So what it makes actually the bottle lit up is as thin as paper, and it's completely flexible, and it doesn't break, and it's waterproof. It was the first time that actually this technology was used in something like this. It was very challenging, I'm not going to lie, but it was a lot of fun, right? So that's the type of things that we do. You can see here, for example, a little bit the see-through with all the electronics inside, with the 2 PCBs, the sandwich of the mobile battery that we ended up using, and the antenna for induction charging, so it's completely waterproof. Now, learning here that was very important. Now, this project with Coca-Cola, we would have not got the project if we would have not built the first prototype. We created all these concepts, amazing PowerPoint, tremendous 3D renders, right? SolidWorks, like everything super beautiful. But we sent a prototype that it will communicate that this thing will lit up, and actually when people will be drinking from it, it will communicate that experience. Now, without the prototype, people will have not actually experienced that. And in Coca-Cola, the senior vice president of design saw this in a table, and when he grabbed it, saw that actually lit up, and when he experienced it, he totally got it and called us, and he was like, this is awesome, we should actually make it. The power of the prototype is very important. The importance of bringing actually that experience that you are actually trying to communicate or get funding on actually into life is super important. Even if you don't share it to other people, just internally with your team, the only way to actually refine it with final users and with the rest of the team members is actually prototyping. So you're going to hear me a lot about that today. This is the 32 colors for the 32 flags participating. This is the charging station that people had in their locker rooms for each of the teams, charging 10 bottles at a time. Through induction, and this is the packaging that we did, very beautiful black box with a P in gold that the Germans, when they came into the locker room, they had this black box, and when they open it, the bottle in gold will lit up, and you will see all the see-through now with the names like congratulations, you are world champions, and all the names of the teams. Sadly, it was not in Spain. Hopefully, maybe in the next one. And you see here all the different players, which is very cool, you know, to see all these people drinking from it. Instead of using 2 hands, actually just using one because it's much easier to grip and you don't lose it, right? And from there, we both now in the Eurocup, which just recently was, and also in the Olympic Games in Brazil, and we were like, okay, what if we try to add even more value to the teams? Instead of doing marketing of putting like big logos, we don't believe on that, right? It's like, what if we keep creating more solutions and create a family of solutions? So we were like, okay, the people in the teams are carrying these bottle carriers with 6 bottles that is very heavy, full of water, and they're like, you know, and all the balls and the first aid kit, and they're like running, you know, all around. It's like a pain in the butt for them, right? what if we create a tower that is vertical on wheels where you can actually have, for example, 18 bottles, and it's actually a cooler inside that is maintaining the bottles completely cool during the games. So we designed it from scratch. It was a lot of fun. We created a mid-resolution prototype. We sent it to University of Southern California, to the soccer team, and they were like breaking it apart, and then they told us like it's too tall, it's too heavy, the wheels are damaging maybe a little bit like the grass, maybe it's better if you make them a little bit thicker, like all that feedback, and we ended up refining it into what you see here that has been actually used in the EuroCup. Now we're working in a third evolution of that I cannot talk. Alejandro is prototyping like crazy right now in the office, and it's going to be for the next World Cup. It's a lot of fun. Second part that I wanted to share with you is some of the learnings about creating Propellant. So the first learning that we had when we were creating Propellant, we have never created a company before, right? We started to talk to who were all our competitors. The most amazing thing in Silicon Valley, coming from Spain as I come, is that you will be like, okay, who are the most experienced companies in strategic design, like for example, IDEO or Frog Design. These ones that have been there for 30 years, no? And you will call directly like the founders, like for example, David Kelly, etc. And you will actually have a meeting with them, and they will share with you, like openly, like we ask them, like, what would you do differently if you will create right now, for example, your company 30 years after? And it was fascinating. You will engage actually people giving back, right, what they have actually learned, and that's something that everybody agreed on. It's like one of the most common mistakes when you create a company is that if you are 3 friends, is to go 33%, 33%, 33%, right? Also, the most common one is if you are 4 people, 25%, 25%, 25%, or 50 and 50 if you are 2. Now, that does not work normally, and it generates in the mid-longer term a lot of trouble. So a lot of people recommended us, that's not correct. You should actually have someone that is going to be leading the company strategically, visionary-wise, and other people are going to also be part of the team, but might have a little bit less equity. Why is this so important? Because if there are conflicts, there's going to be always someone that is going to actually make a certain decision to resolve the conflict. Otherwise, you're going to get, like built up in tension between the founders. So first thing that it really helped us a lot. I know it's tough. You have to put, like the boxing gloves and ask very openly to everyone, like, what will make you, happy? What do I need to do? Like, do I need to put more investment than you? You need to open those conversations. But please don't make the mistake to go equal, because it's very, very hard to solve any conflict towards the future. Then another learning is try to be self-funded with friends, fools, and family, the 3 Fs, as long as you can actually do, okay? It's very, very important. And the reason why is because what you're going to be prototyping, what you're going to actually be creating is going to gain much more value, and you're going to actually take much more care than if you get money right into very, very quickly, okay? So if you find a way to be self-funded, be. Another learning is that reputation takes many, many years to actually build. This is something that everybody in business world always tells you, but it's so true, and it takes just 1 second to lose. The first clients that we had, like we invested $150,000. Day one, when we incorporated in Delaware, we never touched any of that money because we already had 3 clients. A lot of companies have asked us, like, how are you working with these companies that are so well renowned, etc.? Well, the reason is because it's not about the company being in day one. It's about the reputation that we have been building working with those companies before, right? So reputation is something that really works like a currency. Now, also people ask us a lot, like, what is your exit strategy? Is it 4 years? Is it 5 years, 6 years? Because you're doing great, like you grow and opening different offices. Like, a lot of people ask you that, no? We truly believe, and this is, of course, us, we truly believe that the exit strategy is to don't have an exit strategy. 20th of February, we're going to be 4 years old. We have been tried to be acquired already 6 times. And we have had the same conversations all the times, right? Which is like, we have a long way to go. We're just growing organically. We want to focus on quality and keep doing a great work. Right now, please don't call us. No? I think it's very important because you are not working on how to improve a product or a service on your company, and at the same time looking on how to exit. And if you are looking how to exit, you're looking about the money. That's not the driver to create a company. Money never is. This is truly with my heart. I put it in you for the 4 generations of entrepreneurs in my family. Money is not the driver. Now, what is the driver is to create an amazing culture. Culture is everything. If you're going to screw something up, please don't screw up the culture, okay? I'm going to talk a little bit about this. Our ethos, for example, is very simple. People first, always, then the projects, and then the company. Why is so important? Well, because all the decisions that we make are based on that. Like example, you have an amazing client that you always dream of working with that comes with an amazing project, but it's not the right moment, right? People are working really hard already in other projects, like they might be not the best moment, right? So it's a lot of good money, but you know that it's going to have an impact on the people. You have to say no, right? Short term, it might feel great, but mid-term is going to blow in your face. So it's very important, the decisions always on people. I'm going to talk a lot about people now. Projects and company. A lot of people, especially when I was in school, I always thought first about like the company, like, you know, what is the company that I'm going to be working for, right? What is the kind of like the brand logo, no? The name that I'm going to put in my resume or in my CV. Well, truth is that at the end, the key thing is that you follow people. Who are you going to be working with? Do you know your boss? How is he? How is she? How is going to be learning from that person? Will you go to maybe for a beer or a coffee with that person during a weekend? If you feel like no, then you shouldn't go maybe to work to that company. Do you know about the project? What are you going to be working on? Right? How does it look? Have you talked to the other people that are working in those projects? What has been in the last couple of years? Which other projects that person has been working on? That's the type of questions that I highly recommend that you should ask yourselves. Follow the people, follow the projects, and then the companies happens. People change from one company to another. People change from one project to another one. You will follow the people. People will follow you. Now, the key question that I want also to share with you is constantly ask yourself, why does it add value in people's lives? Whatever you do, whatever decision that you're actually making. I know that everybody has read a lot about this, you know, the 1,000 no's and all these type of things, etc. The reason to say no, or the reason to actually, for example, to hire someone, etc., is like, why does it add value in people's life? Who do I need in the team, for example, to help me to bring this into the maximum level, right? So we believe a lot in meritocracy. Our culture is based on meritocracy. We don't have hierarchies. It's completely horizontal. Everybody is leading a project and at the same time are also supporting another project. So everybody has 2 hats, including myself. Everybody. You're leading a project, but then you're supporting other people in other projects. We don't take more than 5 projects concurrently. That's something that we have learned. More than 5 projects in parallel, for example, is crazy. People start to get really, really hot in their brains, right? It's very important, the health of the people. So meritocracy. Everybody in the room, it doesn't matter what is the age, has the capacity to actually talk and be listened, and the decision is going to be made by the person that has actually the most expertise, for example, in that area. Like Alejandro, for example, he's a creative technologist. He's prototyping a lot of super cool projects in Propellant. If he's in a meeting and he says like, excuse me, but this is not the right way of doing this, we should do it this other way, everybody's going to be listening and making the decision that he's making. So that's very important. And we are very proud, here you see a small John Travolta in the bottom, to be tiny but shiny. We are tiny by design. We truly believe that diamonds are really made, you know, by being tiny and by, as they say, diamonds are made by pressure. So we truly believe that at the end, the pressure of being, you know, like a family, like everybody really knows each other and you are actually working very close, shoulder with other people is crucial in the team. And then ideas are worth nothing. This was the #1 lesson that we learned, for example, in our center. And you are like, really? I have always thought that ideas move the world. It's like, yeah, but you have to make them happen. Like, just talk about ideas doesn't make really anything happen, right? So make them. That's kind of like the key thing, like the prototype that we were talking about, right? Make it happen, make the experience, bring it to life. One prototype truly means that is worth 1,000 meetings. A lot of corporations, when people are like, but how come that people, like in a garage, very few people are able to go so fast and to create all these amazing things? Because they prototype, because they have a lot of constraints. And in big corporations, you lose a lot of time in meetings, aligning everybody wants to put the footprint, technical requirements keep evolving, and it's very hard to actually get the grasp of the project. And a lot of the big companies, the corporations, are trying to work more like startups nowadays. So there's a superpower in all this that is very important to develop, and it's visualization. The capacity to visualize the ideas, not your ideas, that also, but the ideas of the team. Now, visualization does not mean that you need to be drawing like, a Leonardo da Vinci, but everybody in a room that has the capacity to take a marker and draw a doodle that is summing up everything that is being said, for example, in a meeting, that's going to become the direction. Now, the people that have that capacity are going to be leading teams. This is very important. You cannot become a leader without actually the capacity of visualization in the world that we are actually moving. And visualization is 2D, is 3D, is physical, is digital, is anyway, is prototyping, but the capacity of visualization. Example, this guy, Etibar, all my respect to this guy, has the world record of holding spoons with his body skin. Now, I truly believe that is the end of the specialist era, okay? The reason why is because we truly believe the attitude is going to be actually the hero and not so much the skills, because the skills, the projects, everything is accelerating. So you're going to actually be all the time being curious, learning new skills, developing the ones that you have in different ways, etc. So that's why we believe in unicorns. I want to talk to you a little bit about this. Now, unicorns is not $1 billion evaluation type of companies. Unicorns is that professional, that person that we aspire to become someday, okay? That has those skills that we know that we might not have today, but we aspire to have, right? Now, in Propellant, those attitudes and those skills are the following. Attitude is be positive, always with a smile, a lot of energy, coming like to change really the world because we truly believe in. You have to be having fun and have a sense of humor that is contagious to the other ones, not making fun of the other ones, but actually making the other ones laugh. Be proactive, so lead by example, not just talking, but you're talking about like, it would be great if we do a prototype, go and do it, and then bring it, put it on the table, and then everybody actually is going to improve that. So that proactivity, being curious about everything. We have in the team people that studies at night astrophysics because aspire to be really an astronaut that goes into a mission to Mars. That type of curiosity, that's actually what is going to be driving the world. And hard worker, people that, like it's not going to be complaining because we're going to be, working maybe tonight really, really hard because we're going to be bringing something magical into life. And it's like, it's 7 p.m. I should be actually going home. It's like, really? I mean, that's do you think that people have changed the world in the past? That's how they were like, all right, I need to leave. And you cannot do that every day, right? Every day all-nighters, not good, right? That's not good. But you have to actually have the capacity to be very, very hard-working person. Then planning, the capacity of planning, fundamental. All that methodology that we were commenting, you need to deliver. You cannot be just on the abstract. And then you must be a risk taker. That for us defines what is the attitude. Now, why I put the attitude first? Well, if we are interviewing, for example, a candidate, and we have highly talented people in the team, like crazy talented, it's amazing. If you interview someone and doesn't click in all these things in the list, we don't continue the process with that person. And it makes sense because the skills can actually be learned through time, right? But the attitude is very hard that you're going to actually be changing your behavior, changing your attitude, changing your point of view about things. So the skills that we search for is visualization, the capacity to visualize 2D, 3D, physical and digital, making, capacity to really make and bring into life those experiences. A strategy, we really like people that are able to think about ecosystems, think about systematic problems and systematic solutions. It's not just one silver bullet that I thought that this is going to resolve everything. That's not how the world is no longer working, as we're seeing with many different things, right? Empathy. Very important, the capacity to put yourself into the shoes of others, being a humanist, understanding really how it adds value in people's lives. And then last, taste, having the capacity to have an eye and a hand that actually, is able to bring into a level of sophistication those ideas into life. It's very important. The world is full of ugly things. It's very important at the end we make things that looks much better, right? So I wanted to share with you how this I learned from my mentor. I had an amazing mentor in my life, which I still have. I look forward to see him every time I go to Spain. He was my boss, my friend, and also my mentor. So I want to share with you how to prototype yourself, okay? And I want you to start right now, today, not right now here, but I highly recommend that you do this exercise. It's a scary exercise, I must recognize, because you start with a white paper. So you don't have the answer of this exercise. Now, what I would recommend is that you start thinking of what do you want your CV, your resume, to look like and to say in 15 years from now. Have you thought of it? What are the people, the type of people that you want to be working with? What are the projects that you want to be involved with? Type of projects, you can be abstract or you can be super mega specific, right? What are the skills that you have and you want to develop, or that you don't have, but that in order to achieve those dreams, you're going to need actually to acquire? And what are the companies, that type of companies or existing companies that you would like actually in your journey to be part of and to actually learn from? So that's the first thing. Now you start with a blank page and it's a little bit scary, right? There's so many options, so many things you have to choose, right? Think of, write it like a resume that is much more advanced, fast forward into the future. Now, once you have it, what the magic is going to start to happen is that then you ask yourself how you're going to get there. Now, how you're going to get there, break it into different, for example, brackets of time. Can be brackets of 2 years, brackets of 3 years, whatever you prefer. And now the third thing is in the next, for example, 2 years or 3 years, what are the people that you want to be working with, the type of projects that you want to actually be involved to be learning from, what are the skills and what are the companies, for example, the existing or new ones, might be the one that you want actually to be creating, that you want actually to change the world through. Now, with that exercise, what is going to be very interesting is that it's not going to be a completely straight line, right? But what is important is that most of us, we try to do incremental innovation. Incremental innovation in the way that this is us today, and we will just think of what is going to be us in the future for 2 years. But you don't have the larger vision. The strategic future foresight of who you're going to become in 15 years, you don't know. You need to stop for a little bit and think, dream big, dream bold, who you want actually to aspire to become. And then you back engineer. You don't go, if you want to be disruptive, you have to back engineer from the future towards the present. Okay? And very, very interesting, if you think about it, this is not going to be a straight line. At least has not been my case, not the people that I know that have been doing this exercise. This is going to look like a messy road, okay? It's going to go in loops, and then you're going to meet someone in orientation, and you're going to build a company together, and then you're going to meet this other person, and then you're going to, right? And this client, and then you're going to partner with them, and you're going to do something amazing. It's not going to be like a perfect line. Never is, right? But you're going to look back, and you're going to be like, wow, this 15 years, what I have been doing, I had a lot of fun, amazing people, amazing projects, amazing companies, and then you're going to do another exercise like this for the next 15 years. That's what I did when I went back to school, for example. I thought like, okay, 15 years, corporate world, now I want to be my own company next 15 years ahead, right? So that's a great exercise. If you haven't done it, I really, really recommend that you start maybe tonight if you have time, otherwise tomorrow. Give back to others. This is something that we truly believe in Propellant. We love to give this type of talks and share really with people like you that are the new generations that are going to be changing really how things work, and both at the products, services, but also experiences. So it's really, really inspiring to have the capacity to share with you and to open capacity to really questions as I'm going to jump in right now in half a second. I will also suggest that you go always with a small notebook, back pocket, in your backpack, and you don't need to be, again, drawing like Michelangelo. This is a trip that I did recently, for example, to India, no? And I'm taking notes of things that I see, but I'm seeing a video or an interview or reading something in a book, and I take like a lot of notes, or creating flying things for our office because we just moved into, right? And like a lot of different stuff. At the end, I really recommend that you go with a notebook, because in the moment that you actually put things into the paper, you are bringing them into life. It's the lowest resolution of prototyping that you can actually start. And as you accumulate a lot of these notebooks through time, you always remember like, oh, that thing that I thought that this with this other thing, etc. And you connect it from this notebook to other sketchbooks that you might actually have. And you have the capacity to have in your pocket and in your backpack the capacity to inspire others that are going to actually help you to bring this into life, because you can show them. If you don't have it, everything is verbal, and people don't have too much time. One picture really is worth 1,000 words. So highly recommend, if you don't already have always like a small a sketchbook in your back pocket or in your backpack, highly recommend. So from here, 3 questions and answer. I brought 2 T-shirts from Propellant, very, of course, unicorn-like, for the first 2 questions. Okay, there you go, first T-shirt.
Hey, here you go. My name is Pranav. Firstly, thank you for coming here. A lot of what you said resonated with me. I specifically had a question about something you said, like making is better than having ideas. But often the problem is like doing the kind of research to make informed decisions. So how exactly, do you make sure that your information is accurate and you're able to act upon it? Or like, what are the resources you use?
Like for secondary research or for like primary and secondary?
Just like if you're trying to gauge the size or the kind of split up of the market, then how are you going to do that? Because there's so much information out there which is biased.
Very, very good question. It depends on the project. Some projects can be related to problems that are very highly identified that people already have. Then the answer to that is actually go into the behavior that they have with existing products and with existing services, right? But there are other projects that might actually tackle things that do not exist, that you cannot go, and compare to, or are completely a moonshot, right? That are not going to be able to compare to companies or to products or services that exist in the market, right? In that case, the focus has to be especially on the behavior of people. There's a lot of amazing products that has been created, right? And that were just by looking how people behave in their lives, and then you can add something that is going to be adding value into them. So in that case, it's much more behavioral driven than maybe market analysis, benchmark, positioning, where is the space, etc. Then ideating-wise, we do not ideate in the research phase, in the discovery phase at all. And that's hard, no? Because designers, we are all very visual. We all take a Post-it and it's like you try to come up with a solution right there, right? Because you saw something while you were talking with someone, etc., right? But if you hold what we were commenting before, like if you hold those horses until you have actually those insights and those areas of opportunity that you have actually validated with people, then you're going to be really productive when you start actually to ideate, and you don't have preconceived ideas. That's the part that ideas try to solve. It's a shortcut that our brain triggers into, to try to solve the problem right away. But if you hold it, the way that you will try to solve it is going to be much more insightful, because it's not based on what you know. It's going to be based on what people are doing, or what are the pain points that they're doing things in a certain way, right? So,
thanks.
Like one male question, one female. Sorry.
Cool. Hi. I'm Diana. I really appreciate that you're coming out, and sorry, my voice is very raspy. I have a question about when you did mention the equity and sharing equity. How was your experience in that? Because I know that, like, if, say, your ideas have been developed by, like, more than one person, or if another person within your team has, like, a very similar vision or a very similar idea, like, it can potentially almost, like, separate the two companies and create two competitors if both individuals or like if all three or however many want equal equity within the company. I don't know how you dealt with that. If you can mind sharing some of that experience.
It is a great question. So when you partner with someone to create a company, it's like marriage. You need to be very, very, very sure that you are feeling that that's the right person for you, right? Like, it's very important. You are getting into a long-term commitment. You're going to go through a lot of perfect storms. Change is the only thing that is going to be warranted. So you have to, I think it's very important that each person in the team of potential founders have the capacity to put on the table what are the roles that they want to actually be doing. There are two roles that are very important. Doesn't matter if you are 2, 3, or 4 people, but there are two roles that you know always normally happen. And it's the tandem. The tandem meaning you have one person that is thinking about the future, right? And there has another person that is thinking about the today. So there's one person that is more thinking about the strategy and the future and the vision and how the company is going to be growing and scaling and potential partners towards the future to actually make that actually happen. And there's going to be another person that needs to actually be much focused on the present, on how to make actually the current projects to happen. And there's always going to be, and this is a conversation we had with a lot of the founders also in the Bay Area, right? There's always going to exist a tension there. And it's a healthy tension. If it doesn't exist, that tension, you're not doing enough. Okay? There has to be a tension like I generate. No, I'm more like the one bringing new projects, more vision, how Propellant is going to evolve around the world, etc. Right? Like more on that strategic vision role. And I bring a lot of projects. I create a lot of trouble, right? To Siddharth in this case, that he's working, for example, in operations more into the day-to-day to bring the existing projects into life. And he's like, Hugo. Alejandro knows very well. It's like, we cannot have this project right now. And it's like, okay, but when? Because this project is amazing. Check what we're going to be able to be doing. This is a great opportunity, etc. Right? And then Siddharth is like, okay, let me think about it, and we're going to figure out, how we can actually make this actually happen. So those two roles, I think, is a very healthy conversation. If you are, for example, 2 people, 3 people, or 4 people, to know who those two roles are going to be, who naturally, as their natural skills, are actually very suited for each of those 2 roles, okay? Then the other conversation that is, I know is a tough one, is the one of, okay, I'm going to be more involved, or I have more experience, or I'm going to bring more value because I'm bringing this network of, for example, partners, or this network of potential clients, or because I'm bringing this investor, or because I'm bringing my own family investment, right? That conversation at the end is very important, right? Which is, open the conversation and ask them like, okay, what are you going to be bringing on the table to add value? I'm bringing this, you're bringing this, you're bringing this, you're bringing this. And you need to have a very healthy conversation about, it's not very common that everybody's going to be bringing on the table exactly the same, right? There's some people in the team that might have a little bit more years of experience or different networks of contacts. So that, I think, also directs the conversation. And then another thing, the third one that I would like also to share with you is don't make the mistake neither, guys, of opening the company with the same profiles of founders. It should be complementary profiles. It cannot be the same profiles. Like I come from business and I have evolved into industrial design. Siddharth comes from electronic engineering and has evolved into industrial design. And our third co-founder is a serial entrepreneur. So he's the guy that knows also, how to scale and build and grow this type of creative services, design-oriented type of companies. So we are 3 completely different profiles. And it's based on a lot of conversations that we had with people. Like you ask with a lot of other founders of design studios, and everybody will tell you like, it was co-founded by 2 people or by 3 people. And the first thing they will tell you, we were designers or we were engineers, we met in a pitch to a client or we met in a school, and it's tough. Like if I will make right now a decision will be that I will create a company probably with profiles that were complementary to me, that were different than me. So that's also another thing that I think is very, very important. If you're going to be tackling the problems and the projects in the same way with the same lenses, it's going to also not be very complementary and adding a lot of value. So that's a third layer that I think is interesting when you're having these conversations.
Great. I think we probably will take 2 or 3 more questions. I know there's some over here. Over here.
Thank you.
Hello. My name's Lucas. I'm a business major here. And so you said it would be a good practice for us to look 15 years ahead in the future to kind of see what we wanted to do. And I thought it'd be interesting if you could share with us what your 15-year plan looks like.
Our 15-year plan is my personal with the company that I'm part of. I have the honor and the privilege to work with Propellant, is to have 5 regional offices around the world and have a platform of super talented propellers, probably 25 to 30 people for each of the design studios that we're going to be opening around the world. And we don't want to work with too many clients, for example. We want to be working with 7 to 10 clients that we can actually be adding a lot of value and growing organically with them, focusing especially on quality. So we believe that in the next, we are now in our 4th year, so in the next, let's say 11 years, we have this journey of opening Mexico, opening another office probably in some part of Europe, and then another one in some part of Asia. And with those 5, you are able to work with Fortune 500 companies with an understanding of what's happening in different cultures in different parts of the world. That's really the key mission, is to create that platform of talent of propellers that can solve those type of much more systematic problems around the world for our clients. Personally, I see myself probably dying and Propellant is still existing there. Personally, I would like to have a family. I have a wonderful dog. His name is Max, with my girlfriend, that she started to work for Uber this week, and she's having a blast. And I look forward to have a family, to have children, sell maybe sometime around the world for 1 year, take a sabbatical. I want in the next few months to cross the United States in a motorcycle. I love motorcycles. I want to, I want, like my father did, create his own NGO. My father had like a great trajectory, with a family business, but then they sold the business, and then he has created like an NGO to really give back and have that impact. Has created the first Buddhist center, for example, in Madrid. Brought people like the Dalai Lama, for example, to Spain, and I really like to be very involved and very. So at the personal level, I see a lot of different facets, and most importantly, I see myself learning a lot of different skills. I don't think like I did when I was 37 years old, right? To take like 2 years. Why not in the future? I would like maybe to do, a PhD and maybe in computer science or maybe in robotics, as looks like that's the world that we are getting into. Maybe we live in a simulation, as Elon Musk says. I don't know, maybe. But I will be part of that simulation in a PhD program in the future. So that's how I see myself. But I would like actually to Propellant to keep propelling. That's, I think, is the dream of everyone, that we are actually there. We are very proud that we're self-funded, that we are independent, and that we actually control our growth as we really see fit and quality in everything that we do.
I think I'm going to keep on propelling. Stop right there. It's a wonderful way to end, but I know there's still questions, people to come up on stage, and I just thank you for really putting maybe 3 different lectures into one. So that was awesome.
Thank you so much.
Very much.
Thank you.